Hi, so today I'm going to show you how I make my everyday sandwich bread. I have to make it almost every other day, or at least a couple times a week because my family loves it. The recipe makes one loaf, but you can certainly double the recipe if you'd like to make 2 loaves. There's just a few ingredients that you're going to need, and you're going to really love the texture and the taste of this bread. So let me show you the ingredients we're going to need, and let's get started. So this is how I make my everyday delicious and easy sandwich bread. What I have in this bowl here is 1 cup of milk, 3 tablespoons of butter, unsalted butter, and I also have 2 tablespoons of honey. That's the sweetener that I'm using today, but if you'd like to use sugar, you're certainly welcome to use 2 tablespoons of sugar, but I'm using honey. Now this milk mixture with the butter and the honey has heated up, so I heated it up just warm to the touch, okay? So it's not gonna be hot where you put your finger is gonna scald you. So make sure that's really important because we're gonna put yeast. I'm gonna go ahead and add the yeast right now. This is 4 teaspoons of yeast, okay? And I'm using instant yeast, so I don't need to wait for it to bloom, or I don't need to put it in there and wait 5 minutes. But I always like to do that because I want to make sure that my yeast activates or that it's not expired. Okay, and that could happen. So if you're not sure if you've had your yeast too long, or you're not sure if it's still going to be active or if it's still good, then you want to go ahead and do that because it's important. You don't want to do the whole mixture and then realize that your bread doesn't grow or doesn't rise. It's because the yeast was expired or it was no good. And again, make sure that your milk is not too hot. It should be no more than 110 degrees, which is pretty much when you put your finger in, you can touch it and you're not getting burned. So it's just warm to the touch. So I've added my yeast to the milk, butter, and honey. What I'm gonna do now is I'm going to start adding my flour. Now I'm using all-purpose flour, and this recipe calls for 3 cups of all-purpose flour. I find that 3 cups is usually what I use for this recipe, but if for some reason you may need a little bit more because there's a lot of humidity, the air is, really makes a big difference, the weather and how this dough is going to turn out. So if you see that the dough is too sticky when you're mixing it, then you want to add just a little bit more. But for now, we're gonna concentrate on just 3 cups of flour, and I'm gonna start adding. I'm gonna add 1 cup first, and you can use a combination of flours if you'd like. I've made this with all-purpose and whole wheat flour, but either way, it's wonderful. It's up to you. What I'm gonna use is also my dough hook attachment for my stand mixer. Okay. Because this is gonna help knead the dough, so you might as well use it already to mix. I'm gonna just start my mixer on low. You can dump the flour all in at once if you like, but I don't like to do that because I like to be able to see if I need a little bit less or a little bit more. So you really just want to add that first cup. Okay, so we've added 1 cup, and if you can see, this is the proof that the yeast is working. There's little bubbles. You can see bubbles on the surface. That means the yeast is good. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to go ahead and add another cup of the flour. So that's 2 cups. Go ahead and start mixing it again. Now you want to have a spatula handy because you're going to have to scrape the sides of the bowl to make sure all your flour is going in. Just bring up the speed a little bit, just to medium. And so far you've only used 2 cups of flour, okay? I'm going to go ahead and stop the mixer and just scrape the sides of the bowl to make sure No flour stays on the side. And just increase the speed once you do that. And as you can see, it's starting to come together, okay? It looks more uniform. It's not done yet. Again, remember, we only have 2 cups of flour. So at this time, what I want to do is I'm going to add my salt. This is 2 teaspoons of salt. And this recipe calls for 1 egg white. Just the egg white, not the whole egg. And I'm using liquid egg whites. You can certainly separate an egg and use the egg white, but I always have this handy, so that's about 1 egg white. And I want you to see what happens next. The mixture is getting kind of runny, and it looks like it's not going to come together, but it will, okay? So right now, I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of my flour. Of course, I'm going to turn the mixer off. You can leave the mixer on low, but I really don't like to have flour all over my kitchen, so I'm going to go ahead and just stop the mixer. And start it on low. See that? Flour tried to escape a little bit. So now you're going to see that it's going to start coming together. Just give it a minute or 2 because the flour has to get absorbed into the liquid. So it's all going to get absorbed, and the bowl should be clean. The sides of the bowl, everything should be clean when your dough is ready. So you should have no dough on the sides. If you see that there's dough or there's still some flour on the sides of the mixer, of the bowl, that means you need to add a little bit more flour, okay? So right now I'm just gonna let it work. I'm just gonna let it run a little bit. At this point we have used 3 cups of flour. This is looking good. Now I can already tell that my dough is gonna need a little bit more of flour because I do see some of the flour sticking at the bottom of the bowl, even though it's not done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna go crazy and add, a whole cup, or I'm gonna get like a 1/4 cup, and I'm gonna bring down the mixer a little bit on low speed, and I'm gonna add a little bit of flour on the side of the bowl. So this is like about a tablespoon. Maybe a little bit more. And bring the speed back up. So what I'm looking for is, that none of this dough is sticking to the bottom of my mixer, of my bowl. Okay, so I'm gonna add another teaspoon, and as you can see, I'm doing it little by little. You don't want to add too much flour because you want your bread to be nice and supple. You don't want it to be too tough. You really want a nice texture, and if you add too much flour, you're not going to get the texture that you like to have in your sandwich bread. So just a little bit more. And you can certainly do this by hand. If you don't have a standing mixer like this one, you can do it by hand. You can just, put all of the ingredients just like I did in a regular medium-sized bowl. And you're gonna have to mix it in with a large spoon. Try to get the largest spoon that you have. And once you see that you can no longer mix it in with the spoon because it becomes too difficult for you, then you dump the rest of the flour on the counter. And put your dough or put your dough on top of that rest of that flour, and you're going to knead it by hand. And I'm going to show you a little bit later on, once this is completely kneaded on the mixer, from the mixer, I'm going to show you how to do it by hand. So just to give you an idea of what that looks like, in case you haven't seen it. Now I can see I still have some flour on the bottom of my bowl. Okay, just a little bit. I'm just going to add a little bit more. And this process with your stand mixer is going to take about 6 to 7 minutes, sometimes less. Again, it depends on the speed that you have your machine on. I have mine on more between low and medium speed. And this is gonna go on for about 7 minutes. Like I said, between 5 and 7 minutes before it's kneaded to the consistency that we need it to be. This is gonna make 1 loaf, okay? So if you wanna double the recipe to make 2 loaves, you're welcome to. You can do that. You can make individual rolls, sandwich rolls. This is, I find it's just so convenient to do just 1 loaf and just slice it. You get about between 12 to 14 slices, depending on how thick you cut your slices. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this go, and it's gonna, again, be in this mixer with the dough hook attachment at that speed for about the next 5 to 7 minutes, and I'll show you when it's done exactly what it's gonna look like, or what the consistency is that you're gonna be looking for in your dough. So this is what my dough looks like after I kneaded it for about 5 minutes on my stand mixer, and I want to show you how my bowl of my standing mixer looks. Completely clean. Okay, and that's what you want to see. That means all of the flour was absorbed into the liquid ingredients. So this is your end result, and it's not. I can touch it with my hands, and it's not sticking to me. It's a little tacky. It's not even sticking to the counter, so I don't even have to use any more flour. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm just giving it a couple of kneads, and I'm using the palm of my hand to do so. Now, if you were doing this by hand, the bread by hand, because you don't have a stand mixer, this is actually what you're going to be doing. You can do it with 2 hands. I'm used to doing it with just 1 hand. So you see, I'm pushing the dough away with my back of my wrist, pushing it away, then bringing it back, pushing it away, bringing it back. Okay, now this is really important. When you're doing this by hand, you're gonna need to knead this for about a good 10 minutes. Okay, sometimes even more with your hands, because the machine is, of course, it's going at a certain speed, and it has the dough hook, so it's doing all this for you, which is much easier. But if you're doing it by hand, again, it just takes a little bit more work, and you're going to want to do this longer. Okay, so what you're looking for, the way to tell if your dough has been kneaded properly and it's ready to just rest and double in size, is you pretty much, again, you're looking for something smooth. Okay, you want to make sure that it's smooth and that you're touching it, it's no longer sticking to you or to the counter. There's not even flour on here. And when you put your finger in like this, I hope you can see this, the dough springs back. Okay, when you do this, the dough springs back. So that's how you know that it's properly kneaded and it's ready to rise. This has to rise until it becomes doubled in size. And what I have here is I have a bowl that I have oiled the bottom of, just a little bit of oil, because you don't want it to stick. You're going to put your dough in here, bottom side, just twirl it around so you can get it coated in the oil, and then turn it around again. Just make sure that it's covered with the oil. This is about a tablespoon of vegetable oil. You can use any oil, pretty much. Flavorless would be better. Okay, so as you can see, this is the size of the dough. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cover it with a towel, and I'm going to put it in an area in my kitchen where it's going to be away from any air or any draft, because we don't want anything to disturb this dough from growing. So we're going to cover it. You can cover it with a towel, with a damp towel, kitchen towel, or you can use plastic wrap, clear plastic wrap. What I do is I put it either inside my oven with the oven turned off. You do not turn on the oven, or inside my microwave with the microwave turned off. and it'll rest there. You want to give it about an hour. Check it at about an hour, but it should be doubled in size. Once it's doubled in size, then we're going to be able to shape it and put it in our loaf pan, and I'll show you what that looks like. So my dough doubled in size. What I did was I set it out in my counter, and I punched it down a little bit, and I opened it up, and I didn't use a rolling pin. I actually just used my hands to make it into this rectangle size, because what we want to do is we want to be able to put shape it into this loaf pan. Okay, this is a 9x5. So I have greased it with some nonstick cooking spray, so that's really important in order for your bread to come out once it's baked. So what we're going to do is we're going to shape it, and we want to try to give it, you know, that same kind of shape so we can put it in there. So that's why I did a rectangle. And so what we do is we're just going to roll it up jelly style, that we call it, so you can see. Okay, it's going to be a little bit longer than your pan, but don't worry, we're going to fix that. Just roll it all the way over. Once you've rolled it all the way, you're going to pinch where the dough meets. Okay, so kind of pinch it so that it'll stay together like that. Okay, just going to roll it back on the bottom side, and then you're just going to push it in again. You can kind of tuck the ends of the loaf inside. Okay, do the same thing here. Just tuck it under, just to give it the size that you need. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like. We're going to put it in our pan. So if you want to kind of be perfect, put the pan in front of it so you can kind of see, and you can get an idea, okay, that it's going to fit perfectly in your pan. We're going to put it inside that loaf pan. We're going to cover it again with the same towel that we did. We're going to put it away again, either in the oven or in the microwave, of course turned off, and we're going to let it rise again. This time it's going to take a little bit less time. It could take half an hour, 45 minutes, or even a little bit longer. It depends on the temperature of your kitchen, okay? And so really what you're looking for is when you see it rise above the rims of the pan, you're going to see it rise up a little bit. Okay, I want to say about a 1/4 inch from the sides of your pan. That's pretty much indicating you that it's, you know, it's risen enough and it's ready for you to bake. So once we get to that point, I'm going to go ahead and show you what it looks like, and then we'll be ready to put our bread into the oven. So this is what my bread looks like once it was resting in the loaf pan for about an hour covered. It has risen, and you can see how nice it's come over from the edge of the pan. And what I'm going to do now, before I bake it, make sure you have your oven preheated to 350 degrees. I'm going to brush the loaf with egg white. Remember, the recipe calls for 2 egg whites. So this is the second egg white, and I'm going to just lightly brush it. Very careful that you don't deflate the bread. And I'm doing this so that the sesame seeds will stick to the bread, okay? So I lightly brushed it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this tablespoon of sesame seeds and just sprinkle it over the bread. And if you don't like sesame seeds, you don't have to. You can use any other seeds that you like, maybe sunflower seeds or some oatmeal, whatever you desire. So once we do that, we're going to bake it at 350 for about 45 minutes, and I'll show you what that looks like.